Developers? All casual? Okay, great. So the purpose of this chat and kind of discussion is all about what our view of creative leadership means and how that impacts casual gaming, and how Jugal and myself, founders of ChaYoWo Games, have built a studio from a small 5 to 10 person shop into about 100 development staff now out of India. So when you look at defining creative leadership, one of the topics that we were asked to talk about is building a world-class studio, some of the best practices of what we've learned along the way over the past 4 years, and what are the qualities behind that. And part of that comes down to the fact of we believe that creative leadership and building good development teams and good studios has to do with the ability to not get focused on any long-term belief, to be able to be open, to be able to work together to have original ideas and original concepts, and think outside the box and not get stuck on one kind of concept that you're building day to day in any type of game. So that creative leadership requires the personnel and the people to have open minds and be able to not just have one creative leader on the top, but everyone's a creative leader. So as you grow your development teams and your producers and your project managers and your iOS teams and PC teams or whatever you do on the casual side, is to look at everyone as a creative leader. So there's not only one. It's not the founders, it's not your project manager, it's not your HR person. We look at everyone in our studio as a creative leader. And of course that comes on to the whole fact of to be bold. On a lot of the outlier content and content you guys build day to day, we need to think on a breakthrough level to be able to think through what will work, what will not work, and how you can help those games be successful. So a quick overview of our company. ChaYoWo was set up in 2008, primarily as a developer and outsourcer. We've worked with publishers, brands, entertainment companies, celebrities, everyone in the whole casual game space looking to create good content. As we grew that business from a PC business to a iPhone, iOS business, as that market matured into a flash-based gaming business, we decided to move forward and to be a creator of our own IP. So over the last 18 months, we've been focusing on creating our own IP and building our teams across a variety of platforms, from Windows Phone, Android, iOS, as well as new entrants into Facebook now. So over the whole past 4 years, we've been able to build out a team out of India that we believe think like creative leaders. So just a couple slides before Jugal takes over on the whole creative leadership thought, what our view is in general, right? So like I said in the beginning, there's not one creative leader. We got to think through, as the market matures, as things change. In 2008, perhaps Flash web-based business was a hot business. Perhaps now you need to be in the App Store and iOS is hot. Perhaps the App Store is getting crowded. How do you build the next social game? What does that require? Does that require a team of creative leaders on a certain genre? It all depends on how the market moves. And as we've built our business, we've been able to adapt to that shift in market. And that whole creative leadership starts from the bottom up. Like we said in the beginning of this chat, it's about empowering your own people to be creative leaders. And as those cycles move, it's a whole relevance of how creative leadership is increasing across many organizations. It's not just ours. I'm sure everyone in the room has teams that work together to build different products across platforms. And the whole view on this topic has to do with how do you decide what that creative leadership term means. So how does that relevant in the casual gaming space, right? And what does that mean? And how does that help build better teams? So we believe it's a top-down approach. We believe that we need to empower our project managers, our teams. We believe to collaborate with our teams. We believe that to go cross-platform and shift, how is that mindset shifting? If you have a programmer or a developer or an artist on a PC game, on a casual game, how does that mindset shift to a social game? How do people need to be creative? And our view is that we train our staff to be able to think out of the box, not just get stuck on one specific platform. To be able to say that leaders are built from the ground up based on experience, based on interactions with other staff, based on developing other games, and based on experience. And our whole thought process is putting on the shoes of a business leaders who are in the game to create a world-class studio. There's a big difference between being a creative and a business person. We need to think monetization, right? You can have the best creative game in the world, but how does it monetize? And from our experience, we've learned that some games monetize, some don't. Choosing the right publisher makes a difference. Publishing on your own, requiring capital makes a difference. And as we built our studio, we have a team of business analytics versus creative folks. And they work collaboratively to decide which game works, which game monetizes, or how to monetize these games and to be creative along that process. And the whole key is sustainability, right? Over the past 4 years, the market has shifted dramatically. Casual Connect has grown as an example in Asia. Asia has become a big focus. Taking your app cross-platform, taking your app in the App Store, taking your app out of the App Store, taking your app on Facebook, all changes dramatically with new technologies, new products. And the whole purpose of the aim is that each and every one in this room, every one development shop should look for sustainability and how to adapt very quickly. If you have a great idea for an iOS title or a great idea for a Facebook title, there's no such thing as failure. You got to try it out. However, you got to try it out and think carefully between being a business leader and being a creative. So ChaYoWo is going to take over and talk a little bit more on how we built our studio, what that means on title perspective, and how that impacts the day-to-day process in our business and how to continue that whole thought process on being a creative leader.
Thanks, Gaurav. So Gaurav has touched upon most of the general corporate stuff, and that's what he handles at our studio. And I run the basic day-to-day operations, so mainly. So what I'm going to do in the next few slides, we have another 10 minutes maybe, so is to walk through what we did, especially in a tough market like India, where many of you guys might not have this issue because we never had a gaming culture back in India when we started off, so even from the we do have very good programmers and okay artists and stuff, but to bring them back to gaming sensibilities and make content for a Western audience where it was really monetizing was a different deal altogether. And I assume that most of the guys, people in this studio or in this room, comes from either from a startup background or is entering the space and stuff. So, I think it becomes relevant how to set up a team and how to take it forward, kind of, right? So what we did was, after our outsourcing days, we realized that, see, there are a lot of one-hit wonder studios, some guys who had a success in some particular game. And what we did was, we thought that, rather than just having a couple of games that, or just have one game that we put all our energies on, let's make a pipeline of games on a specific, and have a product strategy that makes business sense in the long term. So many a times what we have seen is like, studios run out of ideas, or, because it usually comes from a single person. So what we did was, we went ahead and started some innovative schemes inside the office. Even, the ideas from our team comes even from the, the entry level or the new programmer, or even the artist or the testers or whoever it is. So that is one thing that we did to have a product pipeline. Another thing that we started doing was actually to, from our initial days itself, we knew that, the market was dynamically shifting. Back in 2007 is when we actually started this. And by the time, we actually started producing games, there was platforms that were non-existent in 2007. Facebook come on, where iPhone was launched and stuff. So, it really required a lot of, shift in thought process, and also a huge technical background that was needed to adapt to these kind of situations. So, so what we did was, like, we had a bunch of guys who were really good at, understanding the market and had really good technical expertise. So we created an R&D wing which assisted development team to shift to new platforms on the fly. So, so if you really look at ChaYoWo, we actually had developed most of the skill set that we have today internally, so, And we have a set of business analysts and market intelligence team that Gaurav mentioned that keeps on looking, okay, what's emerging, what's this thing, what is coming next. This became more and more relevant in the present day when Facebook platforms and app stores change on a daily basis. So this team's, the continuous things is to look at, what are the viral channels, where should we change. So the development team don't have to really worry about this, and they give us information on a dynamically changing platforms and stuff. So that layer of creative leadership was needed that we separated from our development team. So this team really helped doing that. And another thing that we did at our studio was actually to invest in training the teams. We spent quite a lot of money in training every aspect of the game development, from programmers, artists, QA team, and everything. And we make sure that they get a well-rounded training on almost all the sections of game development. So that is when Gaurav said it's not enough to have creative leaders on the top. It's very important that everybody in the studio speaks and understands the same language. So we do game review trainings, I'm sorry for that. And another thing that we do is to encourage the leaders to innovate and follow data-driven game design. I don't want to get into details of data-driven game design. I'm sure that all the speakers who did talk about social games have spoken to you about that. But that is one of the most exciting things that we have seen in this market. That all days we used to do all kind of intuitive. Okay, this game is going to work. Now most of the things need not be designed or decided on day one. And a lot of things can be changed on the fly with data-driven game design. So what we did is, it is not enough that only your programmer or the analyst understands this. We even train our artists to understand the game is going to evolve over a period of time, so that you should be ready to adapt to these changes. Because the artist will say, oh, I have already done this, I don't want to make these changes anymore. So these kind of issues really got addressed with the kind of trainings that we gave them. And this is a list of some of the trainings that we do. We make them play games on the game review sessions. Then we bring in some kind of psychologist and all to understand user psychology to help these guys design games. Coming to data-driven design again, we make them understand how to look at analytics and understand how the game is performing. Of course, the best development practices is followed in most of the software industries and stuff. And of course, a lot of leadership training. And another thing, if you look at the first slide, was a creative leader should be able to innovate. So, in this thing, like what I really want to say is innovation is good, but what we have done done internally at our studio is to take a product decision based on the risk appetite we have at that point of time. Some of the crazy ideas that we come, if you say, okay, the other products are going to sustain our revenues, so let's make it crazy decision. So when you are running a startup, if you are going to put all your money in actually very innovative ideas, of course, if you have a huge paycheck written by a VC, maybe you can take that risk. But if you are going to actually self-sustain your studio, it actually your leaders on the top should be able to take that decision. So in conclusion, so creative leadership means helps you to stay ahead of competition, helps to have a team that is in sync with the industry and should be able to dynamically adapt and transform based on this thing. So on the market conditions. So that is what creative leadership should come or should mean for a startup casual gaming studio. So I think we have another 5 minutes and we are open to questions.
Does anyone have any questions on how we built the studio?
Yeah, I just got a question about, when you said you guys had a separate R&D wing in the
Yeah.
studio. How long did it take you to create that group, and how big was it in relation to the size of the studio when you made it?
Yeah, So like I mentioned, we had a bunch of guys from the very start when we, as a part of the core team, which we carved out as a separate R&D team when we moved to. So it's important to have a core team with different abilities and capacities. So we had technical people who were able to move fast from a Mac porting to iOS, to able to help us make lot of our frameworks and engines and stuff like that. So it took, so we were lucky that we had that team, which we changed to R&D rather than putting them as actually a development team and working on a specific product. They helped us move a platform. They even helped us when we moved into social to get us on the cloud and deploy and scalability and all those things kind of. So I think that is a very important need, because most of these things these days, especially on a freemium game or a social game, can't be really outsourced. You can put it on the cloud, but you need to have that team internally.
And the other thing with that is we have this dedicated team that has to adapt. We don't know, nobody knows in 2 years from now what the next platform is, right? It takes a lot of learning, it takes a lot of training. So that R&D team is always reading up and trying to figure out what's next and where the market is moving. Got one in the back?
Hi. How do you deal with talent retention? It's obviously a very hot market for like mobile developers. How do you make sure that people actually stay with your company and you get to benefit from the training and so on that you invest in them?
Sure, I'll start that and Joel can continue. One aspect that we put into place last year was a revenue share pool. So for every single staff member that's on a product, based on the success of that product, a percentage goes to that team. Now that percentage may be small, may be big, it all depends on the success of the product. So we want our employees to be empowered and feel that they own the title, not just the management. That's one piece. I think Jogo can answer.
Yeah,
Right?
and another thing that we did, that you can definitely try out is we saw that many of these guys become very passionate to work on their own title than somebody else's. They always believe that they know the next big idea, kind of. So, and there were people walking to me saying that hey, Jugo, I have this amazing idea, kind of, right? So what we did was like, okay, guys, you believe in it. You prototype it, use the resources of the company. Once that happens, we will fund the development. It's not something that is different, but Google does it all the time, and But at the same time, what we saw that the passion that the team puts into that kind of product is much higher. So so when you empower that kind of people, they tend to stay with you for a longer time. From our perspective, our attrition rate is pretty much very low. With having studios like Zynga and Digital Chocolate and all very next to our studio, we haven't lost too many people to those kind of people. So because I think maybe they feel that if you go to other places, they won't be able to have that creative freedom there.
I think we have time for one more question.
Okay. I like how you actually encourage all your staff to be creative leaders themselves. But I want to ask, if there are so many creative leaders, ultimately, who calls the shots? And has there been any instances of disagreements between one creative leader to another? And how do you resolve these conflicts?
Yeah. Okay, so let me just redefine. When I said creative lead, I never said what our intention was not to say that we have a very flat organizational structure. We can have a very but there is a organizational chart or organizations who reports to whom and who take the ultimate call if there is a conflict. What we said when we said that everybody needs to talk in the same language and everybody should be empowered. There should be free flow of ideas, but it should not flow to all random directions. So if you have an idea, you talk to your boss or you raise it in a team meeting, but you don't take the ultimate decision there. But if you really want to take your ultimate, then you have the freedom to maybe run your own product in your free time and do that. But on an official project, the company has taken a decision that org chart or the organizational decision or reporting structure follows.
Both Jugal and I are around today and tomorrow and Friday as well, so please find us, and glad to answer any questions that you have as you guys build your studios, and good luck.
Thank you.